so today I have a makeup related video for you, which is not an often thing. I feel like it's been a while since I've sat in this room to actually film anything, but I've been wanting to film this for a little while now. It is a almost all brand review, overview, thoughts and opinions, I don't know, on the Mecca Max brand. So this is really more for Australians, but anyone else playing at home, I'm sure you can check out mecca.com.au. I have no idea if it ships internationally, but it's worth having a look anyways, just for a little bit of context, because I don't know if everybody here does live in Australia. Mecca, or Mecca Cosmetica, is a makeup retailer in Australia. So think Sephora, think Ulta, but probably more like Sephora. They carry very, very similar brands to the American Sephora. I know we have an Australian Sephora now, but there are certain brands that will only sell to Mecca, and then there are other brands that will only sell to Sephora. It's very similar. They have similar loyalty programs, although the structure is a little bit different. I will say I feel like Mecca online, mecca.com.au, is a better stocked website and just a better website in general in comparison to sephora.com.au, whereas sephora.com is an amazing website. Unfortunately, Australians cannot shop off that and can't even use mail forwarding services anymore. Mecca decided to release their own makeup line. They do have a few products already with Mecca, but they've decided to release a specific line called Mecca Max, which is just its own brand, kind of like how Sephora has its own brand as well. And I decided to give it a shot. I was very curious. The pricing on this is, for Australian standards, pretty reasonable, which is why I was so intrigued and I wanted to see what it was all about. I won't know the exact prices off the top of my head, but I'm going to list all these products down below that I'm going to talk about, and then obviously I'll include the prices as well. So almost everything that you see in my face right now is from Mecca Max. Not absolutely everything, because I didn't buy absolutely everything. So the only things on my face that won't be from Mecca Max will be my eyebrow powder, the blush that I have on, and the contour. So I have a little bit of contour on my nose. Those are the only things that I didn't purchase from Mecca Max, even though I'm sure they have their own versions of them. I just decided not to buy them because I'm very happy with what I have. But everything else is. So I'm going to try and get through each product as quickly as I can to just give a bit of a pros and cons, what I think, would I buy it, would I recommend it, that sort of thing. And then at the end of the video, I will give my overview. First product up is going to be this one. This is the Longwear foundation from Mecca Max. I am kind of indifferent to this foundation. I think the formula is very nice. It's very comfortable. I don't feel it when I'm wearing it. I will need about 2 pumps to get very thick coverage. I don't find it to be very high coverage. So if I use 1 pump, which is usually what I will use, I will get a pretty sheer coverage on my face, whereas most of the other foundations that I use on the daily basis, I only need 1 pump to cover my entire face and to give me very good coverage. So that's a bit of a downside. However, if I put 2 pumps on, then I will get what I think is pretty good coverage. So I just do need to use a little bit more. Overall, as a foundation, I think it's really good. I could definitely see myself finishing this. I don't think I'm going to repurchase it, mostly because of the whole pigmentation issue. I prefer foundations that are very pigmented. One thing I found really weird about this bottle, and I don't know whether it's just my bottle that's defective or whether it's all bottles that are defective, but the print on this. So it looks okay, like you can see Mecca Max on here, but if you turn around here, it's faded. And I'll have a little cutaway to show you. The ink on the outside rubs off if you handle the bottle quite consistently. So I didn't realize that at first. So like every day I would put a pump. I used this for about 2 to 3 weeks straight. Put a pump on my brush, put it around my face. And then over time I noticed that the ink on the bottle was wearing down and I had no idea why. Well, turns out that this ink actually rubs off. I end up with a little bit of sooty looking fingers afterwards if I'm not careful. So that's just something to be aware of. I don't know why my bottle does that. Hopefully other bottles don't do that. But yeah, I'm going to talk about these in the order that I applied them. So the next one I'm going to talk about is this Wet n Dry Powder Foundation in Light. It is the Blur Veil. And this essentially is supposed to be just like a traditional powder foundation. I do find the coverage pretty good like a powder foundation. I'd say that if you try a lot of the powder foundations from Asian brands, this doesn't have as much coverage to it. It does give a bit of a lighter coverage, so I feel like that's kind of a consistency with their foundations, that they aren't the most pigmented of foundations. However, the one thing that really annoys me about this is that this is in shade light. They've got 3 shades, so I don't know why there's only 3 shades to begin with, but light is still not light enough for me. I feel like it gives me a little bit of a tanned feel, and I'm not someone who likes tanning. I don't like myself to be tanned. I just like it to be very luminous and bright, so I find this to still be a bit too dark, but I don't really have an option. And I find that with the limited shade range, there'll be plenty of women with more tan skin that wouldn't be able to use this. So the color range is a little bit limiting in my opinion. So I did use this for all over my face, but traditionally I'm trying to use it up more as a light contour on my face, but it's not something I would buy again. However, I don't find the quality terrible. That's the thing. The powder itself is actually pretty good, and I feel like it wears pretty nicely. So I guess if it matches your skin tone and you don't want something too high coverage, then this would be good for you. Well, actually, I used this one before I put the powder on, so I'm a little out of sync here. But the next one I have is the cream concealer. I'm just rubbing the bottle to see if the ink comes off. The ink doesn't come off this one, so it really is just the foundation for me. I got this in the lightest shade. I think this is in Porcelain. I will say that the concealer range had many different shades. In terms of like for more light medium skin tones. I really like the concealer. I think maybe I went a bit too light for this. I feel like it's more of a highlighter shade for me, so I might pick up the next shade down if I do want a more subtle concealer. Like this is really good if I'm just filming videos like this or I'm just going out, but if I'm going to work, then this is a little bit too, like the difference between this and my own skin tone is a little bit too much. But I love this. I love the pigmentation. I love how creamy it is. It goes on really nicely. It lasts really well. I would say the cream concealer is definitely a favorite with me. The next one I have is this highlighter, and it is called Skin Halo in White Gold. I really like this highlighter. So I feel like 2017 has been a bit of a craze, or maybe even 2016 to be honest. But there's been a bit of a craze for having like blinding highlighters, like super bright highlighters. And that's great for some circumstances. If you're going out to a party or you don't have a traditional day job or office, then yeah, sure, you can wear all the highlighter you want. But there are some of us like myself who prefer something a little bit more subtle and they don't want something completely blinding. Not that it matters because you can just sheer it out most of the time. However, this I find to be the perfect balance, especially for those who maybe aren't really confident with their highlighter application. This is something that's really great. For me, as you can see in the application, I just felt like it just had this, it's noticeable, but subtle at the same time. And that's kind of like the perfect highlighter balance that I really love. I would definitely keep using this, and it's definitely something I would repurchase again. So the next one I'm going to talk about is this eyeshadow palette. There were a couple eyeshadow palettes and I picked this one up. This one is the Eyephoria Vivid Impact Eye Palette. And the main reason I picked this one up is just because it had the most reviews, the most positive reviews on the Mecca website, because I had no idea which one would be better off, and I thought I'll go with the one that most people like. I would say this is not a palette I personally love, but I can see a lot of people liking this palette. I feel like it's a good, subtle mainstream palette. So what you get is you have like 2 skin tone shades here. One is matte, one is more shimmery, and then you have a bunch of like earth tones to purple tones here, and they're all on the shimmery spectrum, but not like ultra shimmery, but just a sort of a soft shimmer. And I think that for a lot of people at work, especially when I go to work, I see a lot of people who like just a simple wash of color over the eye, just for a little bit of something extra on the eye. For me, I'm a little bit extra when it comes to eye makeup or makeup in general at work. I like my base color, then I have a crease color, then an outer corner color, and then on the weekend and out, I just like to amp it up a little more because that's just me. I love makeup. And I find that this is a little bit hard to play with unless you want a purple eye, because the earth tone shades here are not very deep and they're not matte, so they're not great for in the crease color. They're good for overall washes, but other than a general wash, I can't get a lot of depth and definition. Like I don't have a good outer corner color here. I will say that the purple range is a little bit more varied because it does get a little bit deeper here, but I don't wear purple eyes all the time. I'm much more of a neutral person. That's just something to keep in mind. Overall, these are still good shadows. I would say in the pigment, I wish there was a pigmentation scale. They aren't the most pigmented of colors, but I don't think they are intended for people who really just want to go all out and just paint their face. This is really more for like mainstream consumers who want something that's simple and natural. So even if you did go all in with the purple eye, which I did at one point, you're still going to get a pretty wearable eye out of it. but overall I still think it's a good palette. We've got this eyeliner here. It is the Wink Ink Liquid Eyeliner, and it is dual tip, so you'll find like one end is a little bit more squared, and then you'll find the other end is more pointed. And I'm a huge fan of this pen, huge fan, and it's not just because I love dual tip pens in general, but this is a very usable pen. The ink is very pigmented, which is a big deal for eyeliners. I find that there are a lot of eyeliners that will go on easily, but they're not very pigmented, so I feel like I have to go over it again with liquid liner. This is very pigmented. But what I love about the dual tip is you've got this squared end, which is almost like an angled brush, but the eyeliner, and it makes it so easy for me, especially, to get a nice solid line here and then wing it up. And I love that it has this tip here, and this is great for if you want a really subtle thin line, or you just want to like fine out your flicks here, or for me just getting a little bit extra eyeliner down in the inner corner because I always struggle with that part. I find this just so versatile for creating different types of eyeliner looks. For most liquid liners, they only have the tip or a brush, and I find that very limiting. So I'm a huge fan of this, and I definitely recommend this. So this one is the mascara, the Mecca mascara. It is IMAX Volumizing Mascara. This is a bit of a mixed bag for me. I like the formula. The formula is really good. I find that it gives me nice voluminous lashes. It sits well, it doesn't flake off, it lasts all day. It's great. But the amount of product that goes on your brush initially is just too much. It's way too much. Like when I was doing my eyes before, if I don't wipe down the wand and I usually just scrape it to the edge, I will end up with the clumpy, I will end up with like 3 lashes. But that's how clumpy it gets. It's insanely clumpy. So you do need to wipe the brush down, and you can see how much product gets wiped down in order for the brush to be usable, an insane amount. So I just think something's up with the packaging. This is something that I am willing to persevere through because I will use it up. I will not throw this out, but I will not buy another one because it's just too much of a hassle. And then the last product I want to talk about is the Pout Pop lipstick. I have it in the shade Party Police, and my finish is in high def. They have a range of different finishes. I really don't need to buy any more lipstick. I have plenty of lipsticks, so I just bought one shade that I knew I would wear because it is the sort of shade I normally wear, but I didn't want to try a whole range. Overall, the lipsticks to me are pretty okay. They're like average to a bit high. For me, they last a pretty decent amount of time, but they don't stand out against any of the other average lipsticks I have. They're not particularly long-lasting, they're not particularly hydrating, but they're not drying. They last a good amount of time, they don't rub off too soon, but they're not super long-wearing. The color range is okay, I mean, it is what you expect. So, to me, they're like good all-around lipsticks. They kind of remind me of MAC lipsticks in that sense. To me, MAC lipsticks are just like good workhorse lipsticks. I would say this is very similar in that sense. I like the packaging. I like that it just kind of a pop out, that the color's right at the top, so it's very easy when you're storing them. So those are all the items I bought from Mecca Max. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the line. I know there's definitely some products here that I said I wouldn't buy again, but that is not to say that they're bad products. I just know that there are superior products out there that I'd rather spend my money on. But honestly, those products that are superior are going to cost quite a bit more than what you're going to pay here. So that's definitely worth keeping in mind. All in all, I really like Mecca Max. I definitely will go back and try some of their other products when they release more products. I definitely want to try more. I feel like they've pegged themselves in kind of like the mid-tier market, so they're definitely not like Priceline drugstore or like Maybelline sort of range. I wouldn't consider them anything like Chanel or Dior. They're kind of like that mid to low range, and I think for what you pay, it's pretty good quality. So I hope you guys found this video useful. I had a lot of fun trying out these products. Yeah, let me know what you think. Anyways, I'm going to head off. This is Celina reporting from my room. Back to you, internet.